Looking to buy rental properties in 2021? Here's the best way to do it. Time to think like an investor. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Josh and I'm the founder of a wealth management company, and I love talking about ideas like investing and building wealth. And you know what is actually something I really don't love about this channel is the fact that I'm doing every single thing I can to do searchable titles, help provide a ton of value for you guys, do all of these sorts of things, and only 20% of the people who watch these videos are subscribed to the channel. So just do your part, please. It'll help us so much. Hit subscribe if you like these videos. But anyways, guys, I appreciate that support. I want to talk more about rental property investing. And for me, this was the turning point in my life. If I'm going to be completely clear, I remember being at like a family dinner with my extended family. And for the first time ever, I would have been like 13, 14 years old. And I heard my dad and my grandfather talking about rental properties and investing in real estate. And I was like overhearing this whole thing, and I wasn't really paying attention because I was young and I didn't really care about money. It was not something entering my mind at that point. But I started to hear about how you could buy a property and it would go up in value and you might be able to sell that for more later. But even better than that, you could buy a property and let's say the expenses on that property are like $1,500 a month for your mortgage and your taxes and all that sort of stuff. But you could rent it out for $2,000. That means every month there's $500 of cash flow, and that's $500 a month that you didn't have to work a full-time job for. This idea that I could find a way to earn money or get the resources that I need to enjoy my life without necessarily having to have a boss, or without having to go to university, or without having to go to school, or do this traditional life path, I thought that was fascinating. Because what if I could accumulate enough investments maybe over the course of the next couple decades that I could essentially be in control of my life and my time as opposed to having to go work for someone else. I was obsessed with freedom. I was kind of a class clown, didn't really want to listen to what I was told. So this whole idea of investing in property was like, okay, this is the greatest thing ever. Now, one of the things I did immediately following is I went to my dad and I said, hey dad, how can I learn more about that thing you and grandpa were talking about? And he's like, oh, there's a book that lots of people read and you might want to take a look at it. I've actually got a copy. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And first thing I'm going to say here is that's a great book and it really did change my life. But everything produced by Robert Kiyosaki after that, you can probably throw in the trash, because I think after the first one, he kind of realized he could make a ton of money, maybe even more than in real estate, just by selling books. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad certainly changed my life. It taught me about how you can be the captain of the ship if you learn how to use your money correctly. And it's not necessarily about earning a ton of money, it's more about time. And this is where I had this massive breakthrough, and it was that wealth isn't about money. You know, I'm in the wealth management business, I'm an investment guy, and people see me as the money guy. Now, I work in wealth management, and I help people invest and all these sorts of things, and people see me as their money guy. Some people actually call me their money guy. But that's not actually the way I feel about the whole thing. My real motivation here is time, right? For me, wealth isn't about how much money you have. It's about, do you have complete and total control over your schedule? And those are completely different things, because money you can just go make a bunch of by doing whatever you might do, getting into a high-paying career that you don't necessarily like. But, you know, I'm the kind of person who would way rather make $75,000 a year and have complete control over everything in my schedule and how I get to spend my time doing things I enjoy, versus making $500,000 a year and working 80 hours a week and hating my job and all that sort of thing, right? And I think a lot of you guys can relate to that, and that's why we're here. Investing is the art of getting control of your time by finding ways to earn money without having to be there. And I think real estate is the perfect example of how you could do that, how somebody could do that. And so when I talk about investing in this art of making money without having to physically be involved, I mean, from time to time with real estate, you do have to be involved. Like when you have to go pick up heroin needles off of the ground in your rental property, I have had to do that before. But all of that being said, it's not a full-time job. You're not there 40 hours a week. And in investing, different types of investments kind of fall on the spectrum of how much work do I have to put in, right? So if I were to think about the most active investment, it would be starting your own business, because it becomes your 9 to 5. It consumes you. My business in wealth management, it's much more, I mean, the hours aren't normal, but it's much more hours than a 9 to 5 would be. at many times during the year. Whereas a rental property, it takes time, and sure, you have to go sprinkle a few hours here and there per month, but it's much more passive than a full-time job. And on the total other end of the spectrum, where it doesn't really take much time at all, would be something like investing in the stock market, because you identify a good investment and then you buy it and you just hold it for a long period of time. But a lot of you are kind of in this middle ground, right? It's like, okay, I don't want to necessarily jump ship and start my own business and dive full time into trying to create freedom and time and extra money. And some of you think stocks just, I'm not quite as engaged. I don't get to have a physical asset I can improve and work on, and maybe it's harder to understand. But real estate, this thing in the middle, where yes, I have some touch, I have some control over what happens, and it also has this nice leverage effect where I can build money pretty quickly because the bank is willing to lend me lots of money to buy rental properties, and it's not gonna consume my whole life. Real estate is like that middle ground. And I bought my first rental property, I believe in 2014. Yes, it was 2014, and boy, oh boy, it's been quite the journey. It has been some very, very, very highs where I was like, the first time I ever received a rent check, right? I bought this house, I'm making payments, and then the money that comes in is more, and I'm like, what is going on here? This is the weirdest thing ever. These people are thankful that I'm renting to them and they're paying me. Like, that was the first time that had ever happened. And then there were massive lows. Like, you have tenants who draw demonic paintings on your wall, and you come in and you realize they've trashed the place and moved out, and you're gonna have to redo everything. So here is what I would do if I was going back to buying rental property for the very first time. If I was going back and buying for the first time, I think I would spend much less time thinking about what's the perfect property, what's the right capitalization rate, where am I gonna get the best rent, what's the best neighborhood, is this house gonna grow in value? People get very caught up in picking the right investment when I think, and for myself personally, I should have been much more focused on how am I going to manage this property, okay? And there's a key distinction, right? So first things first, when you're buying a rental, yes, of course, I'm not saying don't look for great investment opportunities. I'm not saying don't look at the capitalization rate, don't look at rents, and don't look at the bills. You have to. That's kind of square one. You wanna make sure you're buying a property that doesn't have any structural catastrophes or any structural issues, foundation, roof, things like that. Those things can always be improved, but when your foundation starts caving in, you have a serious problem, okay? So first things first is you wanna make sure nothing structural or significant about the house is about to explode, and that the property is in fact cash flow positive. You can do this by going to the realtor or whoever's selling the home and asking for financial statements on the rental. What rents has this received over the last year? What has gone out? And then you accept the risk that that will continue on. In investing, you are really just trading risk, right? You are taking on more risk in order to have a better future. You're making that sacrifice. Obviously, you want to run the numbers, right? But that's as much as it has to be in terms of identifying the investment. The thing that you don't want to do, which I did, was getting into investing to create some future peace of mind. That's great. But then doing it in such a way that is completely counterproductive to peace of mind. And here's what I did. I thought, okay, I'm going to come up with a down payment and the closing costs, and that's all I'm gonna need. That's great. But things happen. A $5,000 fix here, a $3,000 fix there. You have plumbers who need to come in and electricians who need to rewire your house because it's a hazard. You end up in a place where this property is going to be costing you a lot more peace of mind than it's creating. And what that means is there's just a lot of maintenance, a lot of upkeep. There's expenses that you can't necessarily afford. Beggars can't be choosers, and you do not want to be a beggar. The ways you become a beggar with rental properties is when you don't have a cash float to sustain you for vacancies, okay? This was the biggest error I made. I thought, oh, I'm gonna assume the property is always rented. Like, I live in a city where rent's it's easy to find renters. It's always gonna be rented. But sometimes the property gets trashed, or there's periods of time where you would like to wait for a good tenant to come along. Here's the thing, real estate investing, it can be the best thing ever if you have the right people in your property. If you're the right people with integrity and good income and they're paying on time, it's like a dream, honestly, how good real estate investing can be. But on the flip side, if you have the wrong tenants, it is living hell. It is horrible. It is nothing but constant bickering and drama, and you almost become a parent in some weird way. And it's just, it is not what you want. And if you are the beggar who doesn't have a cash float set aside for vacancies, what you have to do is you end up becoming desperate, and you'll take the first person who's willing to rent it out, and you're not willing to maybe wait a month or 2 months to find a really high quality tenant, right? Having a cash float or maybe some notional value in your mind, maybe setting up a separate bank account or separate finances altogether for your property so that you have cash there, it's separated from your personal stuff, and you know that if I have a vacancy, that's fine, I can afford it, it's part of the float. Or if there's a $5,000 expense that comes up, I'm not all of a sudden scrambling for cash to try to figure out how I'm gonna fix that. So I think going into real estate as a young person specifically, you're so excited, right? You wanna get involved, you wanna start multiplying your money, and what you do is maybe you don't budget as much as you should for vacancies and for unexpected expenses. That is the number one thing. For me, all of the major issues I had with real estate investing didn't come from misidentifying the right opportunity. I pretty much nailed it. I got a great house that went up in value. It had some things that could be improved. It cash flowed really well. All the numbers were great, but I was the insufficient one because I didn't plan enough around contingencies about how things could go miserably wrong. Happy renters, happy life. That's how it goes with real estate investing. So I highly encourage all of you guys to make sure that if you're curious about real estate investing, save up an extra 10 grand over and above down payment and closing costs. It's gonna make the process so much smoother, so much easier. You'll be avoiding being desperate to find tenants, and you'll avoid scrambling to borrow money or take from home equity or whatever it might be just to float yourself through those hard times. So anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on real estate investing. I know a ton of you guys are really excited about this prospect of getting involved in real estate and all the benefits that provides. So if you got any value out of this video whatsoever, please, like I said, make sure to hit that subscribe button below, press that like button, and turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.